Welcome to the Local Farmer Podcast, where we invite you to join us on our farming journey. Whether you're a seasoned farmer or you're just getting started, we are here to learn and grow together. Our goal is to help encourage, inspire, and equip the local farmer. So let's grab our boots and let's dig in. All right, well, welcome to this week's episode of the Local Farmer Podcast. I'm Brandon.
And I'm John.
Yeah, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we have a deep dive discussion into grass, more specifically soil, right, John?
Soil. Yeah, don't call it dirt either.
Is that offensive?
Yeah, I went into the extension agent and said, I got some dirt. And they're like, that ain't dirt, that's soil. Okay.
Well, you're going to learn this about me real quick. I don't know terminology. I don't know different things. I'm going to say, yeah, that tractor. And you're like, that's not just a tractor, bro. That's a, and so you're going to learn a lot. But we're going to dive into talking about grass. We're going to talk about a little bit of the history of our property, our farm, and the problems that we're facing right now and where we're going to go in the future with hopefully some type of solution. But hey, before we dive into that conversation, make sure you like, you subscribe, you share, you post, you do all those things. That really does help us out. So yeah, dive right in with us. Yeah,
dig in.
So sorry. You're right. Dig in with us on this episode. Talk to me about our property. Just about where are we with the soil situation?
Well, so when you're going in, we have a grass problem due to the fact that luckily it's not grown up, not a lot of briars except for in the low-lying areas. But we are fortunate to go ahead and have grass and have fields. However, it's, just mowed, just wasn't treated for anything. No animals on it. No grass cutting it, so it has no rejuvenation. It's just been cut, round baled.
Now, I would say on the outside looking in, on a person that doesn't understand grass or understand what I'm looking at, it looks fine.
It looks great. Looks like you can roll up in there. I mean, it's beautiful.
Looks luscious. And I mean, people, there was another person bailing it, so you think, oh, that must be good.
Right. Yeah. I actually tried to get hay from the guy one time because I had run out the guy I normally buy from wasn't out. So I was like, well, I'll get some from him, and he wouldn't sell me. Probably a God thing. I didn't want it anyway.
Yeah.
So no, backing up just a little bit, I have learned that on my small property about grass management. When we first bought this place, I thought, well, you just get on there and get some animals and get some fence up and it's all good to go. We've learned that owning a sizable property or leasing one, you're a property manager you got to look at trees and, well, that tree's going to fall on my fence. And, what trees am I going to cut when I go into an area? Do I want to keep the hardwoods or, want to keep different species of trees for shade purposes for the animals? So there's a lot more involved. And I've learned that over the past, 6 years or so on this small property that we live on. And then the grass for the horses is going to be totally different grass than for the cattle, but it definitely needs managed. And after last year, we had a lot of dry. It's been rough. It's been an uphill battle at our property here now. So I didn't want to get off on the wrong foot over there. I was like, man, I did it the wrong way before, depleted my pastures. So let's start with a soil sample.
Yeah, like I said, don't know much. You had, our idea is, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to put livestock on this property. Wow, look, the field is already cleared for us. But there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to healthy soil. And we talked about, on the first episode, about being more grass farmers than livestock farmers. In a way, you have to make sure that the ground is taken care of, because that is ultimately, I mean, if you think about it, it's what we want to do. We want grass fed product. So why wouldn't we invest time, invest money, invest all of that? It's the same thing with we're looking at feed for any animal. We're going to research it. We're going to figure out, hey, does that fit into our model
Right.
of what we're doing? That's really how we have to look at our property and the grass and the soil and all those stuff. Is it does it have the nutrients that we want to have in it? Because if it doesn't, then we're really doing it, wrong in a way. So this is extremely important. Even though I don't understand it, I'm going to learn about it because it's something that I think can be forgotten when you first get into farming.
That's right. Well, we did that. We talked about it, and then we kind of hit the brakes. Said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute.
Hmm.
Let's look. Let's get the ground right." Um, but if I hadn't run into what I've run into on my personal property, which is a little different because horses are a little harder on grass.
Hmm.
They eat it and rip it to the ground.
Hmm.
Um, so that's a little different in the species of grass that they do, and I've learned that. And probably, I mean, I didn't know it, but I've learned it. Some of it. I still do not know it. There's a lot of things I read, and I'm like, when I got my soil report back, I called the uh, agent down here at the extension office, and I was like, I don't know what I'm reading.
Yeah.
I see the numbers, but what's that telling me? So he came out and looked at the property. So that was very helpful. Reach
Yeah.
out to your extension agent, no matter how big or small your property is, or how good it looks. Like I said, because this place, I knew it had some broom sage in it, which is a no go, but I thought, well, it got a lot of green in it too.
Hmm.
But we'll get into that. Turns out a lot of that green's not what you want to feed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think starting off with a firm foundation
Mm.
with anything, right? You build a house, you got to make sure that the ground's level, you got to make sure that like everything is good to go. And that literally starting a farm, we're trying to make sure that we create a good foundation.
Yep,
It may not be in the timing that we want, but that doesn't mean that we can't start.
that's right.
Like, and I think hearing some news this week, and we'll get into that, kind of a little discouraging. However, we're gonna dissect it. We're gonna unpack what does that even mean. So you have some readings from uh, them coming out and taking soil samples and stuff like that. So, and you just said that you need some help reading that. Were you able to look at that, right, and understand what's being said about it, or
Well, yeah.
okay?
I mean, there's some numbers there that were good, so we didn't even get into those.
Yeah,
Um, so those numbers, I still don't know I mean,
yeah,
what theirs was supposed to look like.
yeah.
Of course, there's so many tools available that you can reach out, get, but always your extension agent can always help you too. But um, you know, every situation is different too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, depending on what we're running on that property, depending on if it's ready or not. Me and him were talking specifically about um, beef cattle.
Yeah,
Obviously, for the pigs, that's they're going to help this situation because
yeah,
they're going to turn up the soil.
yeah.
But we're not going to run them everywhere.
No, and pigs will eat anything. That's what
Yeah,
I've always heard. But there's a lot of things that you get out of that. It's not they're not just eating the grass. They're pushing the soil. They're moving stuff around. They're they're um, um, their manure does a lot of work and help. So there are some ideas of, hey, we can just put them out there and help stir some stuff up, but that's not going to be the solution for 35 acres of
right.
just pushing some pigs on there. So we have to do some work.
That's right. Always got to do some work. There's
Hmm.
always work to be done in farming.
Yeah. So what are the things that we're going to have to do to get this property ready for any type of livestock?
So we want to get the grass growing um, and get nutrients in the soil. Part of the problem with the soil, let's just go with that.
Hmm.
How did it get this way?
Yeah.
I mentioned last time that I think that we had talked about how when I lived on the property 25 years ago, it didn't have as many like water holding in different
Hmm.
places, and it's like, why is it holding? And So the extension agent helped me with that as well. Said when it's been cut for hay, it's been cut, but not cut like mowing your lawn. If you mow
Mhm.
your lawn, the clippings go back down into the soil,
Yeah.
right? When you cut for hay, you're clipping that out the bottom, dropping it, raking it, baling it up, taking it off property.
Mhm.
So it's just constantly trying to grow fresh from nothing, right? You don't have anything, breaking down in the soil and all that. Plus, you don't have the ground getting broke
Mhm.
um, by animal hooves or whatever. It's just that tractor's going over it, mashing it in, making it harder and harder and harder. So what we've got is we've got soil that don't have the right nutrients. It's also hard.
Okay. How do you put the right nutrients back into it?
So we're not really not as bad. He
Okay.
he said where soil is not as bad as he expected it to be.
Mhm.
Um, but the types of grasses that are growing aren't right. But we are out of perimeter on some of their um, phosphorus. We need to, nitrogen's borderline.
Mhm.
So what they suggested is to come in, put 90 pounds of lime per acre, which is fairly expensive.
Yeah.
You got to get that done. It takes time for that to get in the soil, soaked in, um, and then the time frame that all that's going to work. I asked him in the meantime, could we have our hay guy come cut it for hay? And he said, there's nothing here worth rolling. So,
So, hearing that
mhm.
hearing that guy, that professional tell you, "Hey, it's not even worth selling this, or even using it for any animals." How did that hit you?
I was pretty,
I know how it hit me.
yeah,
So
it was like, wow, you've got a lease period and now you just took a chunk of it from me because not him, but the way that we have to go about.
yeah, the information he gave us.
We didn't like it.
No, no. And then you called me, told me this, and over the phone, I probably didn't like express how frustrated I was. I was just asking a lot of questions because you say it's going to take time. I want to know, like, what do you mean? Do you mean like this time, or do you mean like, because our goal is the fall.
Yeah.
That's our goal, was to put livestock, cows,
Hmm.
specifically on the property in the fall. Um, and you're potentially telling me that that wouldn't happen. I want to know why. And then you're a lot like me. We've talked about this. If you tell me you can't, I'm going to say, watch me,
Watch me. Yeah,
just
that's right.
watch me. And I'm going to find a way. It's tricky because you don't want to rush too quick to something. And you're like, they were right. And, we're paying for it.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And the frustration of the goal, because it's always good to have goals, um, could potentially change now because of what someone else said. Now, I said this to you. I said, anytime that you own something, you can look at it one way. But if you're coming in to help a friend and you're going to give your perspective about something, it's easy to say, I just wait. Or
Right.
I go ahead and buy blank, blank, blank.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that, but when it's yours, you're looking at it differently. If you say you can't, you're going, okay, now how do I figure that out? Because words are words. I mean, a professional opinion is holds a lot of weight. I totally get that. However, it's easy for someone to say something when you're not in it, when it's not yours, when you don't own it.
That's right. Well, and you speak about ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's something to be considered too. I mean, this property is in my family, but that don't mean I'll end up with it. For
That's
certainly
right.
not.
Yeah.
So we have a 5-year lease. And I mean that could be extended. Um, but however, we we got to look at what can we do in that short term.
Yeah.
We can't bank on that. We're going to get an extension on that lease, or we're going to get an opportunity to purchase that property.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't do that. So we still got to look at. We got to get as quick as we can. Get this property generating some good grass, get some livestock on it, and go from there. So we do have a time frame involved, and a lot of people want to get into farming now too. They're going to lease property, so they're going to run into the same problems we're running into. Because by the time you pay for it with today's prices, it takes a long time. But what you said, if we were owning it and we've got 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, lifetime, whatever you're looking at, then we may, be like, okay, well, we'll lime it and wait a year. So
Yeah, and look at a potential other um, thing to do in the
in the
time.
meantime, yep,
Yeah, in the meantime, but that's not the case.
yeah, but my grandfather used to say something. I don't know where he come up with this. Why there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
So, and that popped in my mind after he's telling me that. I'm like, I'm going to find a different way.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be something. So, and we did. We've discovered multiple other options. Some aren't feasible due to expense.
Yeah.
I don't know. We really narrowed one down.
No, you sent me a video, and I was very curious on the video because I ended up, I think, texting you back and saying, "So you're just telling me we cut it, and it potentially will, be okay. Not necessarily the best, but it'll be okay." And you're like, "Yeah." Long story short, kind of. I mean, like the way I saw it was, and it made sense to me. And you could be watching this and you're going to rip us to shreds, like what we're talking about, because you're like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. But uh, it's kind of like a rose bush. You have to prune the rose bush in order to get the quality roses, and you have to cut these things off that look beautiful. And but really, it's kind of, in order to get it, you have to treat it, you have to cut it, you have to maintain it, you have to you have to do these things in order to get the results that you're wanting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what I was looking at watching, this idea that you had sent me of, hey, if you cut it and if we treat it with some stuff as well, then it may do exactly what we want. It's just not been treated like what you said at the beginning of all this, like tractor running over it, mistreatment, and it's growing and barely ever getting cut. And then once it does, is it really healthy for it? So kind of looking at it as a living organism, of it needs to be fed, it needs to be treated, it needs to be maintained.
Well, it is. I mean, the ground's not been turned over from humans or animals
Yeah.
in 30 years, or probably, I mean, I would imagine it's in the 70s. We talked to my uncle when he was in and said my grandfather used to plow it years
Hmm.
ago. Um, but that was, he had, towards the end of his life, he had cows. So that would have been late 70s. So he wasn't doing it then, but it did have the animal, you know, droppings and manure, putting life back in the soil. But then from 80 on, I mean, this is what it's been done is just
Hmm.
cut hay off of it. So that's 40 years,
Yeah.
44.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. So what is our options? Um, we looked at several.
Hmm.
Some of them, we've talked sheep before, and
Yeah.
and I just kind of ran into that last night. Maybe sheep eat some of that grasses that are there that cows don't eat. So that was an option to get something on the soil, um, you know, fertilizing it naturally, uh, to get to start. The ag agent also said you could always till it up and plow it and start from scratch. But you're
So
talking that's time because you still got to put the lime back in the soil, till it, plow it, till it, however you want to look at it and do it, and then overseed. That's expensive. And then you got to have time for those roots to set in and go. And I think the grass is there. There's grass there. Plenty of species we want. Research a little bit of that. Found out a lot of these grasses are laid dormant for years, but they're
hmm
there. They just need help getting back up because the weeds have took over and pushed them down, but they're still there. So mowing it is definitely going to be, no matter what,
yeah.
mowing it. We have the equipment to do the plow and till, but the time and then the
Yeah.
time to grow, kind of knocks that out.
Well, even just the amount of work that you're putting into it. So my question would be, is that a guarantee? Like if you go in and you plow and you do all of this work, I mean, are we going to get the
Well,
results in the time frame that we want it?
and then being said, the ground's not level.
Hmm.
It's not steep, but it's not level. But you're going to end up with runoff.
Hmm.
So you could potentially create more problems. with that. Um, Trying to go faster, create more problems that take us longer and cost us a lot more money. So
Hmm.
I think that wipes that option off the table. Um, you could go ahead and we could run some cows on it. Maybe hit our fall target, go
Yeah.
ahead and get some fence up, mow that, mow that property, um, you know, put the lime down. And even though it's a little early to put the cows on there, they're going to help. And then plus do some grazing with the hay, roll the hay out. So you're not only feeding your cows, you're spreading out seed that's
Hmm.
in the seed heads in the hay. So that's an option too to get us.
Yeah, I would say there might be some people listening going, why talk about this? Why not just do it and put cows out there and just see what happens? And that's crossed my mind. You had said, hey, you've already been down this path before with your property. So, I mean, like looking at that going, we don't have a lot of time. We do have a time to think about it, though, to make sure that we're doing it correctly by, you know, maybe doing just a couple of different, paddock areas, and just slowly change over within time and let the cows, let the pigs, let whatever help us instead of just you know going all in on another aspect.
Right. Well, we had these conversations, and you have this conversation with your wife, or your buddy, or your neighbor, or your dad, or your grandfather, um, and we just want to have these conversations to bring you guys in too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
leave comments. Send us, tell us we're crazy. We don't know what we're talking about. You're probably right.
Yeah.
but we're we're
But we're
we're learning.
learning. I
We're
mean,
learning.
that's what we're trying to do here,
Right.
is to bring you along with our farm beginnings,
Yep.
our journey on this, and we want to be transparent. I
Yep.
mean,
And
that's
and we're two guys that like to think out of the box anyway.
yeah.
And if somebody does it one way for the last 20 years, we're like,
Why? Why?
why? And can we do it different
Yeah.
and better? So, and maybe we try it and it's worse. And you go
Hmm.
back to the other. We've done that before. So
Yeah.
we're just
Well,
hashing it out.
I look at it as, and this is kind of silly, but I started doing sourdough, and there are so many different ways to
Sourdough bread.
sourdough bread. Yeah, there's so many different ways to cook sourdough bread. Like, you know, one person would say you have to do it this way, and then another person would say no, you have to do it that way. So
Right.
there are a lot of different ways to do things. However, it all depends too on your situation of, like with sourdough, humidity plays a role. Like I know it kind of sounds silly me talking about sourdough, but that as an analogy of going, hey, just because in Illinois they do it one way, they do it that way because of the humidity, the rain level, like all that stuff.
Right.
You have to change it for your setting as well. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out, like, hey, is there another way? And how do we meet our goal? Because you're telling me I can't meet my goal. That frustrates me. And I don't want to miss, because we're sitting in April and May right now,
Yeah.
and
We've already got a late start. We wanted to
e-
start this
yeah.
earlier.
Well,
And
you talk about late start, and I texted you about this yesterday too. But my wife's like, "Hey, we got to get corn in the ground," so we're probably missing the mark on that too. So we're a little behind on a lot of things, but w- it all depends on like what we're doing as well. Like we might just end up mowing it and seeing kind of where we're at. But here's a question for you: how do you know that we're in a good place? How do we know that we're like, oh yeah, yeah, it was here and now it's there? Is it doing the readings again and just kind of seeing
oh,
that?
on
Is
the
it
soil.
on the soil
Yeah, we
side?
could
Yeah,
take another soil sample in a
yeah,
year. But it needs time to get that, that lime and different things worked in there. Um, that's another thing is too that we could look at. We really want to stay away from chemicals
yeah,
because we want to be a regenerative farm that uses the manure from the animals and move the cow out, bring the sheep in, and that eat a different crop and what have you, uh, to be all natural.
yeah.
However, we could do a little cheat to begin with and
w-
try to put some liquid fertilizer and some weed and feed and some different things like that. But there again, not guaranteed, costs a lot of money, and you still have the time frame. You know,
And to give a little context as well, like the reason why this is so important is because we want our product to be grass fed.
that's right.
That's why. And in order for us to have a grass-fed product, we need the right grass to do that. So that's important to say, because it's like, well, why don't they just buy,
Yeah.
feed, or why don't they just buy some hay or
Yeah,
whatever? And
you can grain them till you get grass growing or whatever.
we
And
can, but that's not our
that's
goal. And
not our goal. And we want to.
yeah,
Why not start where we want to be?
hmm
Uh,
and modify if we need to.
yeah.
Yeah, and we've
So
talked about that. Even when we were talking about like looking for feed for the pigs, and we had talked about that a little bit in the first episode of just how, okay, instead of us doing this, now it's become a goal. Because right now the grass is now a goal
mhm,
of ours to get it ready by the fall, so we can have product and livestock out there. But like you said, we've got a lot of work, and I think just the average person looking at grass, though, like
you
I'm
wouldn't know.
telling you, like I'm
It,
looking at it going, this is some
it's
solid
it's
grass.
green.
Yeah,
It's green. But
yeah.
no, so that's the thing too. We will overseed. Um, and we will overseed, especially like in that low line area
Yeah.
that stays wet. That'll be our summer fields. We probably won't even leave the cows in there in the summer in the winter because
Mhm.
it's too wet. It don't ever dry out. So we want to plant a warm weather grass down there,
Mhm.
because we don't need warm weather or cool weather grass when we're not going to let them in those paddocks at
Yeah.
that point. So that's a lot of our grass talk. I mean, like we even looked at some extreme modes. Like I know a guy that's in erosion, and I give him a call and I said, "Hey, don't you have one of those hydro seed trailers? And I mean, it's a big old trailer and you can hydro seed. I've seen him hydro seed in sides of the interstate and everything
Yeah.
else." And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Grass pops up in that quick." He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "How much is it per acre?" You know what he told me?
Mhm.
$2,200 an acre. I was like, yeah, probably not our option."
I was trying to do quick math on that. I mean, you're looking at 40, am I thinking right? 40,000 if you did
I
all our acreage.
mean,
Obviously, it's not all of it, but
yeah, I'm not a math guy.
neither am I.
I got a calculator. I can do all kinds of
Yeah. I mean,
math.
you're watching this right now and you did the math. You're like, yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
about these guys.
yeah,
They're
I can't even add.
no. But so moving forward, um w- where we haven't fully landed on exactly our plan of what we're going to do and how we're going to move forward. I know we're going to have to cut the grass. I know that we're going to try our hardest to get it ready by the fall.
Mhm.
Um, how we get there may not be the same way that we're talking right now today, because we're going to do some research and look more into how we can potentially meet that goal.
It may not,
Yeah.
and in fact, if you guys know anything, this is one thing that came to my mind right before we sat down or
Yeah.
this morning is is there different species of cows that eat more than certain types of grass?
Mm-hmm.
One, got to research that. If you know it, let us know. Two, what about sheep and goats that we could get in there
Mm-hmm.
working that's going to feed on the different grasses that's in there because it's not all weeds.
Yeah.
It's some grasses,
Yeah.
but they're just grasses that a beef cow don't eat. So, is there some other product animals that we could run through there that go along with our program that'll help us to rejuvenate the dirt and the soil and can eat what's in there
Yeah.
that we can get started with sooner and then roll the cattle right in behind them, overseed the product we want. Plus, when we start mowing it, you may start to see the grass, the actual, fescues and stuff come up and, um, grasses that they'll eat, so Bermuda
Yeah.
grass and so forth. So
Who knew?
who knew?
Who knew?
It's just such a big topic.
It is.
And
And
when we're totally ignorant to it, like, I mean, I've just mowed my grass and fed hay.
I, it is mind-boggling when you start thinking about it. It's actually, it's not just grass. It's what's beneath the soil
Mhm.
as well. And I'm not a dirt expert. I'm not. What is that? What is a dirt expert or a
It's a
grass? What was it
it's a
again?
agroologist.
An agrologist.
Agro, ag, I got it wrote down. Agroastrologist, study of grass.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That
I'm not that
that sounds like the study of dinosaurs.
something,
Yeah.
but uh, yeah,
Wow.
we got to do that.
Well, there you go. That's our conversation about where we're at today with our grass situation. Hopefully, we'll keep you updated on really where we go with that. And if you have any advice on that, put that in the comments. We'll definitely read all of those and take those into consideration. I know, like you said, there's different ways to skin a cat. So I think that there are so many different ways that we can go about this.
Mhm.
It's how we want to go about it.
Yeah,
And
and we
and
can
we
try different things.
yeah,
We got enough property to,
yeah,
that front field, it's
yeah.
separated by the driveway.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it's, I mean, we could try, I thought about it, maybe try the till method over there, which I don't, you know, we took samples from all over the farm.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good. But, um, and then in their wetland part,
Hmm.
we'd try something different. So we can try different things and see how they go, and we report them back. And like, hey, this is experience we had. But like you said, somebody in Illinois is not going to have the same result as we do. I mean, heck, somebody across the street may not have the same result because the dirt could be different on that ridge side than it is on, in our
Yeah.
pasture. So it just is what it is.
Well, we're going to dive into that and figure out what's best for us financially,
Mhm.
time, all of that. So, thank you so much for tuning into this episode where we just rambled on about grass for 30 minutes. But hopefully it was enlightening to you. But also, hey, if you have that knowledge, I mean, share it because we're learning, we're growing, and that's what we want to. We want to grow together
Absolutely.
as a community.
Yep.
Bring you in on
Learn
that.
together.
That's right. So make sure you do like and subscribe to all those platforms and come along with us. We're going to grow together on the Local Farmer Podcast.